Our next speaker is Kris, and he's going to be talking about part of what we've just heard from Suchi, is understanding the business case for digital maturity. Now, the biggest question is, what is it? What's Kris's favorite movie? Yeah? What's his favorite movie? His favorite movie is a very emotional, personal drama, yeah, I believe, from what you described, called The Green Book. So, now you can all go off and look about The Green Book, and hopefully you'll get some other fans. But from the description, it sounds a very poignant life story. So, Kris, over to you.
Thank you. Where is
the clicker? Sorry.
Is there anyone who knows The Green Book, maybe as a first question?
Yeah.
And will like it?
Go, look at that.
Okay, only 2 people or a couple of people? Good. So topic for today is understanding the business case for digital maturity. At the moment that people asked, can you make a presentation around this topic, it was very difficult for me to define, okay, what should I put on the slides? Because I think in the end there is no perfect digital maturity level, or there's no one business case that fits all. So what I will try to do is a little bit sharing the experience that we have seen in the last year at Galapagos. Okay, good. So for the people who don't know Galapagos, so there were quite a lot of changes happened in the last years in Galapagos. A lot of company strategy changes. But what we currently like to focus on is everything around bringing the CAR-T therapies to the market in 2027, 2028. And we try to do that with this it's a very small box, we call it the cocoon. It's the size of a microwave, and this cocoon is able to do the manipulation of a blood therapy locally at the hospital. So we place these kind of cocoons in different hospitals around the world, with the advantage that we call it the decentralized manufacturing model. It means that compared to central manufacturing, you don't need to ship the samples from the patients from the hospital to the central manufacturing unit, but we can handle it locally in the hospital, which means we can do that in a, let's say, 7-day vein-to-vein, which is much faster than therapies using a central manufacturing unit. Just as a short introduction for Galapagos. So agenda for today, first is about digital maturity, a short introduction, talk about the impacts on the business case, preparing a business case, and then some challenges and examples. This slide, just as a quick introduction, what data or what the digital maturity is. So it's a picture I found, it's a generic picture I found on the internet, because I'm working in the IT department. I always think about digital maturity. It's technology, and it's only technology, but of course it goes much further. They always speak about the 6 dimensions. You only speak about digital maturity if it's also in line with your company strategy. So it's also about culture, people. It's about your data. So not only technology. So it's a very broad topic. What I like to focus on today, as I'm from the IT department, is more around the IT part of digital maturity. As mentioned before, so I think there's no good business case that fits all. It's really depending from company to company, from situation to situation. So I put some things that I think they can impact the business case and also the level of your digital maturity. So I will go through it one by one. This is a little bit a reflection of what happened at Galapagos in the last 10 years, I would say. So this graph gives a little bit of overview of the investments we could do. I put here a line, it's just a virtual line, there are no numbers behind it, but let's say this is the average money we can spend on a yearly basis on digital technologies. And you can see here on the early days, around 2018, we were able to build a business case that ends up in a multi-year roadmap. So we were, at the time, a little bit behind about our digital maturity. We also had a very old limbs that need to be replaced. So we needed quite a lot of investments to be on the level we wanted to be. Of course, as you also know, so the last years there were quite a lot of changes in Galapagos. So also there the investments, it goes down. So we could not continue with this long roadmap to ensure that we have a kind of good level of digital maturity. So now we are more on this level where we can only work on smaller initiatives and we can only work on the smaller or the highest priority initiatives. Just as an conclusion of this slide, so of course you can only invest as much as the company is willing to invest in digital technologies to get your digital maturity on a certain level. I think that's an obvious one. The next one, what we have seen also, we had quite some business cases or initiatives. Some came from top down, from which were defined by a company of objectives, for example, which was agreed by senior management. In our case, the last years we always worked on that initiative. We call it Accelerated Drug Discovery. The good thing about this kind of business cases is, of course, it comes from senior management. You all already have a kind of buy-in to work on this initiative. Compared to business cases where people who are working on the daily operations, they see things can be improved, so they want to create a kind of proposal to invest in a technology. You need to build a kind of business case. You need to work much harder on that business case. You need more details to be able to convince senior management. So let's say that's a little bit more difficult from time to time. So just as an example, it's more about how can I do my work better. People were working on a daily basis in the labs. They know, for example, how they can improve the process. So both, they're quite good business cases. Let's say the one is more easier to work on because you already have buy-in from senior management. The other one, you need to invest more in building a good business case. And then as the last one that could impact your business case is an example we had also in the last years. It was where we needed to find a new ELN solution. There are quite some good ELN solutions on the market. I think there are some vendors here today. And that's depending really on, let's say, the volume of experiments. If you only are with a couple of people working in the lab, you do only a couple of experiments, and you want to track all your experiments until analysis and reporting, you can do that in, let's say, one solution that fits all. Another scenario is where it's a little bit more complex. Where we were struggling with in Galapagos is we wanted to have an ELN for all our internal experiments, but most of our experiments were also outsourced. So 50-70% of the experiments we were doing were done externally by CRO. But also at the end, when the experiments were done, we wanted to bring that data back into our systems. Another part of it was also other things were outsourced, like our compound inventory, for example. So bringing all the data together, it's a little bit more complex than you can do with a normal ELN solution, I would say. And then you need to look at more solutions like an ELN, Scientific Data Measurement System. You want to bring that data together in a kind of data lake Snowflake via the integration layer, and then at the end you can do some good reporting and analysis. Of course, both are improving your digital maturity, I would say. Both are good solutions, but the first one, let's say it's more for a smaller scale. The second scenario is a more complex one where you do a lot of experiments. So let's say it both fulfills or improves your level of digital maturity, but the business case that you need to build for it, it's a little bit more complex for the second scenario. So that was a little bit what things can impact your business case. Preparing the business case, I think it's also quite obvious. It's not something you do as one person on his own or one department on his own. It's something that you need to do with the different departments in your company. So you need to involve business, of course, IT, quality, also your technology partners or your managed service providers. It's always good to get some insights from them as well to see how to ensure that your level of digital maturity is okay. What we've seen as a good lessons learned, I think it's quite important that you have someone at the business who understands the end-to-end business processes, who can also make the decisions to change things in the organization, and also have some good affinity with the technology. What we normally do at Galapagos when we are trying to assess where we are is making use of capability maps. So we did that both for the research roadmap some years ago, also a little bit later for our clinical development roadmap, where we started from a list of all the capabilities that are in the research area and in the clinical development area, where you can then easily assess for which capabilities are we on a good level or where we like to improve. In this example, we use some color coding. Light green means we are not so mature, we need to invest in it. The dark greens are where we are already on a good level and we don't need to invest a lot to be on a higher level. Another one that's very nice to use is this one. So I blinded a little bit. So I blinded all the capabilities to keep some confidentiality. But if you look here, for example, to capability group 3, currently you see we are doing a lot of manual tasks still internally. We want to be more in the advanced level of the digital maturity. So here you can see how we need to do quite a lot of effort to go from where we are now, the SD situation, to the 2B. And so if you list that for all your capabilities, it's quite easy to assess how much work still needs to be done for certain capabilities. And then we also put some boxes here just to show where we are as Galapagos compared to the industry or to competitors. So I think it's very, very useful, these kind of maps. Some challenges. I'm not sure how I'm doing with the time. Yeah. So challenges, especially for the longer roadmaps that are taking a couple of years. We see a lot of changes happening during the implementation or during the building of a business case. There are a lot of company changes, especially for Galapagos in the last year. So we were starting with a business case 2 years ago. If we compare 2 years ago with where we are now, it's a whole new situation. So we always need to rethink and reinvent the business case, and we need to adapt to ensure that we are where we want to be. The same for business processes, they are constantly changing, also stakeholders and employees. Stakeholders involved in a business case who are leaving the company or going to another role. It's very difficult to replace them or to find people in the organization who has the same experience or drive. The same for people who are joining a company, they come from another company, they have new ideas or they want to do things differently. It all can impact the way you want to implement your digital landscape. And then, of course, all the technology trends, like the thing we heard about AI, for example. Another challenge that we sometimes see for the business cases, so one of the main topics, if you are building a business case, is assess what is the return on investment, what's the benefit for implementing a kind of technology. It's not always easy to measure, and certainly not when you have a business case that is a multi-year, goes over a couple of years. What we sometimes use, we use this typical iceberg picture, where you see you need to do a lot of work below the surface, let's say, before you can do some reporting or analysis. So in the beginning, if you build a business case, you say, if we implement all this, we can do better reporting analysis. Of course, if it takes a year and you have a lot of company changes, the whole situation is changing. So it's very difficult in the end to see that the return on investment after when everything is implemented is really what you planned in the beginning. And so the follow-up is very, very difficult to ensure that you did a good exercise initially. Then some last slides about business case examples. You have a lot of business drivers, of course, that drive your digital maturity. As mentioned before, this one is where we worked on in the last years a lot in Galapagos about accelerating drug discovery. Of course, you have other drivers as well, like improve your data integrity or quality, improve integration and collaboration, ensure compliance, and do more things in an automated way to lower the efforts, the time, and the resources that you need for certain processes. This one, I'm not sure, so for the people who were here last year, this is the presentation I gave, so I will not go into the details anymore, but this was the business case we were working on last year to ensure that all the data that we have in research and development, that we could handle that centrally, store it centrally, and make the data fair so we can use it later on for better reporting and faster decision making as well. So this use case, it was focused on data. Again, it's a slide from last year. I think it's a very nice use case, familiar for most of you. Again, if you want to have some good visualization and analysis later on, you first need to ensure that all your data, your raw data, is fair, can be found easily back. It's stored centrally and managed in a good quality, or with a good quality. The second use case we were working on last year, it was all around the lab execution workflow. So this was more, let's say, a bottom-up initiative where people from the lab mentioned themselves that they do quite a lot of manual steps still, and where we could improve with implementing a new workflow management solution. In our case, it was called Camunda, but there are many others that can improve the way of working, of course. This is the last slide. So going back on the return of investment, if you look to the numbers, for example, in this case, we had quite some benefits. We mentioned we worked out together with the business, if we implement this kind of tool, we can save around 7 million on resources and time over 5 years. Again, how do you come to that number? It's very difficult, but that's the number we used and we get from business. The costs that we have for implementing the solution was much less than what it brings as a benefit. So in the end, it was a clear case or a good business case that was approved by senior management to continue. Unfortunately, we had to stop this project because of the changes in Galapagos, but Also, in the end, I'm not sure at the moment we were able to implement it, whether then we can still prove that the benefit is indeed those numbers. So, always very difficult to assess your return on investment, I would say. And that was the last slide.
Questions for Kris, please.
I think the project that was your cocoon effectively produces one batch of carbon every 7 days. What's the software that's documenting that master batch record?
Yeah. So the software that we use is called Excelit. I think the vendor is Hypertrust, and that's the central manufacturing execution system that's linked to all the cocoons. So in that system you can follow up all the batches, all the runs that are ongoing for all the cocoons placed over the world. No.
Any others? I've got a couple
Okay.
that kind of jumped out to me. So you had the types of benefits. So there was efficiency savings, there was cost savings, there was more compliance and things. When you're presenting to the business, which one gets more impact, or people kind of divert to more, or are they all equally depending on who you're talking to?
I would say it's depending on from where the question is coming from. If you talk to your quality people, they really like to
always about quality.
Yeah. They like to work more on data quality and integrity and ensure that everything is compliant. But it's really depending from case to case to see. I would think what's the most important driver for your company. Yeah.
And if you're presenting to the senior leadership, which ones do they, or are they kind of balanced depending on what the problem is they're looking at?
There I would say the first one I mentioned about accelerating drug discovery. So of course, from their side, it's always better to have better insights faster so they can move on faster with their portfolio, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So it depends on who you're talking to, where it's coming from, but then there is those strategic objectives that kind of drive in, and you can say we can go faster if we have better data to make better decisions, or we can go faster if we can do twice as much, which is a time saving or a cost saving.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Another question?
Hi, Julian from Cordon Pharma. On your last slide, you had a cost associated with the platform.
Yeah.
Did you attempt to quantitate the cumulative effect of having that platform for future use cases that you haven't identified because you had that platform in place?
Correct.
They were now possible.
Yeah. So in the end, this is the cost only for the first use case, I believe. We already had in mind to do also some other use cases to automate some certain workflows, but for this business case, we only took into account the first use case that we wanted to build with it. But yeah, the more you can use it, the more benefits you get out of it. Yeah.
Good. Anyone else? No? I think, I think you might get some questions on how you got those numbers over lunch, which will be good.
Remove it again. Okay.
Thank you, Kris.
Yeah.